We're going to spend a few minutes looking at just an introduction to web forms and how we can create those in Dreamweaver. So I've gone to the Chico Art Center's website. This is actually this is fairly similar to some of the stuff that we work on in class in that it is an older site. They are all static pages. There is no database driving this from the back end. It's not built on a content management system because of its age. And so I've gone and brought up their Contact Us page here. I could see their contact form here. There's another form down here I'll point out because there are a couple on the page. This one takes information to sign up for their newsletter, but I'm going to look at the one here, their standard contact form. So, first of all, the advantages of contact forms. If you're wondering why we want to bother with this, I'd say there's probably two primary reasons that we like them. One is, as opposed to just using an email address, so like, for instance, there's an email address over here, and you could just email Clint if you wanted to. But if you use the contact form right here, we have control over the different fields that we're asking for. So in other words, we ask for the full name, we ask for the company, their address, their city, their state, their zip, so forth. So there's specific information that we're asking for here. Actually, as was just indicated, I clicked on full name and I didn't put anything in there, and it is a required field. And so this thing is actually flagging you saying, hey, a value is required. So we have some validation turned on this form. So we get to ask specific questions because there's specific information we want that the user might not think about or might not stop and think, oh, hey, they want my phone number. We get to require some fields. So unless you fill out those required fields, your submit button down here is not going to work. So that's the first thing. The second big advantage, I would say, to using a form as opposed to the email addresses has to do with spam. And that's the fact that if we look, we've got an email address sitting over here. So there's Clint's, Deborah's is sitting up here, so dsimpson@chicoartcenter.com. This email address typically, now this one has a fix on it, but typically this email address is sitting as clear code. In other words, meaning the email address is readable as an email address in the code. So if you remember back when we did text links, we would just type dsimpson@chicoartcenter.com and highlight it here, and we go make that an email address. And in Dreamweaver, you see that it changes it. The link points to mail to : dsimpson@chicoartcenter.com. So the full email address is sitting there in the code. And if it's sitting there in the code, then bots out on the internet who crawl around looking for this go harvest email addresses and use them for spam. So I'd say that's another big reason to use contact forms. There is such a thing as contact form spam. And we can fight that different ways. If you ever see a CAPTCHA on a form, this one actually doesn't have one, but that's where you get the garbled looking letters and you have to make out what they are and enter them in to be able to send it. That's CAPTCHA. So that's one way we fight spam on forms as well. Back to the email address here, this actually has some JavaScript on the back end that hides the email address so that the bots can't easily find it. So we can fight it different ways. But those would be two primary reasons we like to use contact forms as opposed to just email address links. So that's what we're looking at right now, is how to create the web forms here. So that's the basics of the forms. Let's go over to Dreamweaver. And so to give us a file to work on, I've gone back to our Project 4 demo folder and found the custom fonts folder that we were working in right there. And I opened the contact page. So this is my contact page that we had. If you want to follow along and you don't have these files, you could just create a new blank page. That is fine. I just thought I would, I've got this Greeking in here right now. I figure, well, let's put a form there instead, since it's supposed to be a contact page. So if this were a contact page, then, it would make sense to have my Contact Us headline there. I would probably come in here and change this to read something like, feel free to contact us using the form below. Or maybe it'd be better to say, communicate with us. Something like that, so I don't repeat contact. something like that. So some kind of little introduction for them. And then we're ready to start putting our form in place. So we want to look at the tools that we have here. So right now I have my Files panel over here. What I want to use is the Insert panel. And you can see my Insert panel up here. I have it collapsed. So if you double click on it, it opens it. If you don't see the Insert panel, you can go up to Window and there's Insert right there. You can turn it on. This has a lot of items in it. You could drag it down so you could see more. In fact, I want to go click here and I want to go to the one labeled Form. There's even more in the Form one. If you'd like, this one has labels on it. You can also come up here to the corner and click on this menu and say Hide Labels. I kind of like it like that. Makes it smaller. And if you're not sure what is what, when you hover over them, it tells you what they are. So that can still work. So I'm going to do that with mine. So now I have my Insert panel here. I can start working on my form. So I'm going to move to Split View here so we can kind of see what's going on in the code. I want to put my form directly below this line of type right here. So I'm going to select this paragraph. You can see it in the code, and my div ends immediately after that. I'm going to select that and click on the right arrow so that I've moved after that. I don't want my form to go in that paragraph. Or I could come over here to the code. You see there's the paragraph. And I could click right after that close P tag right here and insert it right there, because that's where I want my form to go. So now I'm going to go up to my Insert panel, and the very first button, when you hover over it, says Form. So it's got like this dashed line around these two little horizontal bars. I'm going to click on that. It inserts a form. We can see it in the code because I clicked here. It put it there first. If I click back over here in the user interface, we can see that it's added this little area right here. Kind of looks like a div or something, but it's outlined in red. So that is my form area. Everything for my form, I need to go within this. In fact, if I think back to my form that I have here, this is all one form on the side here with a Submit button. So if I was replicating something like this, my full name, my company, my address, all these fields that I want information to go in, all these go within this one form. So I want to be clear on that because I've seen people come in and they put a form in here and they put a field, and then they go start another form and put a field in that, and that's not what we want to do. We want all of our fields to go within this form. Now if we go look at our code, I actually may do a little code cleanup. This is a comment right here, this end content, and it's gotten juggled around. It's actually supposed to go with this closed div right here, indicating this is the end of the content div. And there's my form tags right there. I'm going to hit return and push them to the next line. So right now there's no information in here. I just get an open form tag and a close form tag. So let's go back to Split View. We'll watch how that changes as we work on it. I'm going to select my form that's here. So I'm not in it. There we go. Select my form. And let's look at some of the information that they give us. So by default, it actually didn't give us any information here. When you do it, well, in fact, when I was doing this demo yesterday, it gave me an ID by default, and I believe it was just Form 1. This time it didn't give me anything. I want to ID it, so I'm going to go to ID right here, and I'm going to call this Contact Form. Okay? Hit my tab so that it takes it. You notice in the code it's made it now Form ID Contact Form. So my information is in there. The other bits of information that we have right down here, the action and the method right here. This has to do with how a form is actually submitted. So when we look back to this form, this submit button right here, the way forms actually work, you gather all this information in here. So I type my name, my company name, all this information here. When I hit the submit button right here, the web page takes this information, all these fields that it's gathering, and it sends it to a program that is running on the web server. Very often a CGI program. So it sends it to that program. That program gathers that, creates an email, and sends the email to the manager of the site, whoever you have to call out an email address for them to send it to. Okay, so that's how it works. I went and pulled up the code behind the HTML code for this one. I have that window sitting here. And I went ahead and found the form. So here's their form command right here. Form tag. Actually, there's the form tag. It has an ID of contact, a name of contact, and this action is what I'm referring to here. So it has a method of post. That's how it sends the information. And then under action, note that it has a web address. So it sends it to chicoartcenter.com into the CGI bin. Okay, so that is where CGI programs are allowed to run. There's security issues with executable programs, things that can run. And so most hosts only allow them to run in the CGI bin. In the CGI bin, I have a folder set up called CACBMF, and then the program that's actually running is bizmail.cgi. So in this case, that's not a default program. That's one that I've purchased and have used for these guys for quite a while now, actually. Had some features I liked, had some security that was better than the default one that the host used. Quite often this thing is called SendMail, something like that. But there are security issues with some of them, and so that's why I was using this one here. So basically, it gathers this information, it posts it using the method post, and goes to this address and uses this program to gather all those fields and send them in an email to the email address that you've specified. So that's how that works. So going back to Dreamweaver, my method is just set to default right now. You can change that to post if you want. Most of the time it is post. The problem with action, the difficulty with action, is I can't tell you what that information needs to be because it's based on who your hosting company is, and it varies. So in this case, on the Chico Arts Center one, I had to find where the host had the CGI bin, and I installed the program I wanted to use there. A lot of times your hosting company has a default one that they let you use, and it's likely in a CGI bin. In this case, you notice that at Chico Arts Center, the CGI bin sits just within their domain. Sometimes the CGI bin actually sits up a level, so it's not at a viewable level, so you have to figure out how to get to that location. And so your web host is going to have to tell you where that is, what the name of this program is. They could probably give you some assistance as far as the setup. So unfortunately, we don't have a generic action we can put in here. So we're going to leave that blank right now. So our form field here, it's missing some information, but hopefully you get the idea of how it's working. So let's go ahead and look at how we put some fields in here. I'm going to go back to design view since my screen's a little bit small. Okay, let's put the first one in. So I need to click within the form right here. I've clicked right there. The first one I want to do is the name. So I'm going to come back up here to the insert panel again. And the second icon there is text. So I'm going to click on text. Now, if you're using, I'm in Dreamweaver CC, the latest version. If you're using CS6 or earlier, when you use one of these insert buttons or go up to the insert menu and do this, a dialog box comes up and it asks you for some information before inserting it on your page. In CC, they've done away with that, and you can actually, it puts it and you can edit it. So right here where it says text field, the part that the user is able to see, that is called the label. We can see the tag right here, label. And I can come right here to where it says text field, and I can highlight that and I can change it. You should, because text field doesn't make sense. So I'm going to type full name. You can, of course, put two fields. You could put one for first name and one for last name, something like that. I'm just going to ask for one for the full name. Next, I'm going to select the input field right here. And this one is an input field. You can see the tag right here. It says input, and by default it has an ID of text field. Okay, they've given it a name of text field, which isn't real useful, so I'm going to go highlight that and change it. And you can make it name, you can make it full name, whatever makes sense. So I've updated that one. So now we've put our first one in place. Let's look back over and look at code real quick. So again, here's my full form I'm working on. Here's the first label I've set up. So we have label tags now, open tag and a close tag. So it's a label for full name, that's what it's referencing, and then there's the actual label text that I've put in place. So this is for full name. Right after that, here's an input tag, and here's what it's referencing, the name and ID of full name, okay? So this is the input field right here. It's of type text. So that refers to this place right here that I actually get to put content in. Okay, so now we have our first one in place. So these two go together. The label and the input field work together. Now when it comes to putting another one in, we need to give some separation between them. If you wanted to, you could come in here and I could select this label, this input field. I could wrap those two in a div. That would make sense. And then I would put another div after it to, hold my next one. To be honest, a lot of people quite often just put them in paragraphs. So I could click at the end of this one right now and hit return, and I'm able to put a second one in. Let's put a second one in, and then I'll go show you the code. So let's go put another text field in. Okay, it gives me just a simple generic one. And let's go put address in. Okay, so that's address, or maybe you need to call it street address. That would make sense as well. I can click on the field. Dreamweaver's not keeping up. There we go. I don't want it to say text field. I want it to say address. Okay, so now I have two of them in place. If I look at my code, there's my first one wrapped in a p tag, so it's in its own paragraph. Here's my second one wrapped in a paragraph. So there it calls out street address, and it's going to put the information in a field called address. Okay. So we could keep adding these. You could add as many text fields as we need to. So you see these usually, like if you put street address here, then you probably need one for city and state and zip code, that type of information. You could do phone number. You would probably want to do email address, all that type of thing. Let's put one more in. So I want to show you one more thing with this. I'm going to hit return. We'll put one more in, and this time I'm going to put phone. Clicking on the field instead of text field, I want it to be named phone. And I wanted to show you over here, it says placeholder. Right here I could give a sample. In other words, how do I expect them to format it? So I want parentheses, and I'm going to put, let's see, it's a local company, let's say, so I'm going to put 530 555 1212. That's generic information's number. So if I click in here and go to live view, you'll see that it's put that in here as grayed out text. So when I click, I can put my own content in here, but they've given me an example of what I'm looking for. Okay, so that's how that one is used. So that is the placeholder text that's right here. Okay, let's look at just a couple more form fields we can put in place here. I want to come down here and show you right here. You see radio button group and checkbox group. So these are ones that you could easily want to use. So I don't know if you know the difference between radio buttons and checkboxes. Radio buttons are those ones that are kind of the circle, and when you click on them, they get a dark circle in the middle of them. You get a selection of those to choose from. Checkboxes are just little squares, and when you click on them, they get a little check mark in the checkbox. That makes sense. And the difference between them is radio button only lets you select one from the different options. So if you click on one, you've selected that one. If you change your mind and click on another one, it deselects the first one and moves your selection to the next one. Checkboxes, if I have 3 of those, I can check one of them, I could check 2 of them, I could check all 3, so it gives me that kind of option. So let's look at adding one of these. I'm going to come back over here and hit return, give me some space again. Let's go for, let's go for radio button. So I'm going to do a radio button group, I'm going to click on that. This time I get a dialog box. So I need to pick my name, and then I get to put different content in here. So let's see, what are we going to do? We're going to give them a choice, and this is radio buttons, so they get to pick only one of them. So we're going to say here, favorite meal. Why not? You only get to have one favorite meal. And it can either be breakfast. Okay, notice this is the label I'm working on, so I capitalized by B. The value would be breakfast. That's the information that would be sent to the manager. Lunch. Lunch for the value. I want a third one. I'm going to hit the plus sign. And dinner is my third one. Okay. This is set up to use line breaks between them. That works for me. I don't really need a table. So I'm going to leave that on line breaks. I'm going to say OK. And you see now that it's put them in place for me. Now what this doesn't have is a question for them. Okay, so a question would be really helpful. We'll go look at my code. There's my paragraph that I'm working in. Okay, so I see there's the label right there. Actually, let's stretch this out. Here's my full paragraph. Here's the label and input. No, excuse me. Here's the label. It starts here, closes here. There's the actual label text, breakfast. The input type is radio. Favorite meal is the name. Breakfast, ID of favorite meal. And you see favorite meal 0, 1, and 2. So I would like my text to go in the paragraph here. So I'm going to say, what is your favorite meal of the day? So put it within the paragraph for this. Now, that works there. I probably don't want it on the same line as this, so I'm going to click in here right before the radio button. And I'm going to hold the Shift key down and push the return key. So that's a line break as opposed to a paragraph break. So it pushes it down below it. Okay, so I have a few different fields now. We'll look at styling in a minute, but before we do, I want to add just one last thing. I'm going to click right here and hit return one more time. The last thing I want to put in here, coming up to insert bar, I'm going to go do a submit button. So that's the one with the checkbox in it right there. So I'm going to click on that. Gives me a submit button. By default, it's put the name submit. It has given it a value of submit. So all of that works real well for me. You will see on some forms they'll give you a submit button and a reset button. If you're going to use two different buttons, I suggest that you highlight the one that you want them to use. In other words, maybe you make your submit button green, and if you do a reset button, make it yellow or red. That highlights the submit button. It implies go, the progress. That'd be a good thing to do with that. I've stopped using reset buttons because I don't see much use for them. Because you come in, you fill out the form, and you submit, or you decide I'm not going to, and you just leave the page. And that works just as well. So I'm just going to put a submit button on here. Now, we have a basic form in place now. We can look at code, and we can see, here's all of our form code. There's the beginning of it. We've kind of walked through all of that code. So it's a basic form. It unfortunately doesn't have the action, so it won't really work for us, but you get the feel for it. A couple things about formatting. One is, don't really like how these things align here. Oh, actually, I just remembered one thing I forgot to show you. Let's put one more field in here. We can follow up. We'll go to, actually, I'm going to put it after my phone number. I'm going to click there and hit return. And I forgot that I wanted a text area here. So I'm going to click on that. And this is the one that you often see used for a comment. So I'm going to highlight this one, and I'm going to say comments. Click on the field itself, and instead of text area, we're going to name it comments. Okay. Reminded me because I don't like how this looks either. So this is how it goes in place by default. So it doesn't look very neat. It's hard for your eye to follow it. The alignment is not very good. So you can, of course, put some divs in here. I could put like two floating divs, side-by-side divs. I could put my labels on one side, maybe right align them so they all align off the center column, and then have the input fields on the other side of it. If I was to do that, then I might want to take my paragraphs that I'm currently using. So like this paragraph that wraps around something, it might be easier if I wrap those in divs then instead of paragraphs. So that'd be one way to handle it. Honestly, the really easy way to handle it is select your input field. I'm going to push my left arrow so I move just directly in front of it. And then I'm going to do a shift return, so a line break. I just push the input field below the label. We can do that with each of these. And so now I have labels directly above the fields. And so this looks nice and neat, very easy to use this way. Really simple way you can go about doing that. Okay, the last thing that I want to look at, I haven't saved anywhere along the line. I'll do a quick save. Last thing I want to look at is a little bit of styling. I'm just going to hide my insert panel, click over to CSS Designer. So as you might imagine, having spent time playing with CSS, we can style this just like we've styled much anything else. I can come over and select my source, so there's CSS styles. Actually, you know what? First I want to come over and I want to select my form. There's my form. Then go select my source. Go to my selectors. I don't have any styling on my form, so I'm going to create a new one, hit the plus sign. Suggests this really long thing for me. So it ends in pound contact form. So pound contact form, that ID within content, within container, within contact page. That's its suggestion. So I could simplify this and say anything within the ID of contact form, do this to it. Or I could come here, you notice that there's a form tag here with an ID of contact form. I could come here and I could make it be form, so the actual HTML tag for form. And this would style any forms within my site. So I could do form and click down here in properties and say, maybe on my text, I want the text color to be dark gray instead of black, and I want the font weight to be bold, just to give me a little bit different look. Okay, so they're bold and dark gray instead of the thinner and black here. So I could do something like that, and that'll work on all of my forms now. You can also style the different fields. So this is an input field that I have here. I can style that. So let's click on one of those. Again, pick my source. I know I don't have any selectors for this, so I'm going to create one. Now in this case, it's suggesting the ID of full name, which means I could style just this one. But I don't want to do that. I want to do all of them. So I'm going to highlight that and change it to input. So the input tag. Or I could do the input tag on just this one form, my contact form. Let's do all of them. I click down here, and I could go change my background color, for instance. Let's go find a really pale, let's see, I'm working in greens. Let's pick a really pale green. It's kind of an odd color, but we'll pick that. And if I go to live view, you see that, okay, so it's made these all pale green. Now, notice it didn't do my comment one. That's because these up here are input tags, and this one is a text area tag. Okay, so it's different. So probably the easiest way to do that is I come from my input tag here. I'm going to go to code, and I'm going to come in here and do a comma return and add text area. Okay, so that way it'll do the text area tag as well as the input tag. I put the comma in there so it's a list. So if I go to live view, you see this one is working now as well. I also talked about, it's also messing with these. That's kind of weird, so I'd probably want to go override those on these guys right here. And then let's see, my submit button, I probably would want to go override that one as well. So you see input pound submit. So I could come create a style. So in this case, it's still a submit, excuse me, it's still an input field. So the ID of submit would be the easiest thing to style. So I could click down here and say, you know, I want that background color to be, you know, green like go. Something like that. And I could then decide whether my black type is good or whether I want to change my black type to white or something like that. So much more obvious now. I could also, you know, put rounded corners on it or do different things that way. So you can move through here and do, all of your styling on these things just as you might expect. We've looked at being able to do that with CSS all over the place. So there's the basics of creating a form in Dreamweaver, how we set all of that up. Really the only thing you're missing is once you have a hosting account, you need to find out what they have in place for you to be able to submit forms. So what your action is on your form here.